Hello, YouTube. My name is Scott Perdue. I'm I'm an Amazon author of over 100 books. Got tons of books out there for you to read. Lots of self-help and Christian books. Simply go to Amazon, search Scott Perdue, and all of them will pop right up there. Anyway, today I'm going to go through Chapter 3 in the book Faith in the Wilderness: Biblical Lessons for Strength and Spiritual Growth. Chapter 3 is called Elijah in the Wilderness. The wilderness has long been a central motive in Scripture, representing a place of trial, transformation, and profound encounters with God. Elijah's journey into the wilderness, described in 1 Kings 19, 1 through 18, is one of the most striking examples of this theme. After fleeing for his life from Queen Jezebel, Elijah finds himself in the wilderness under a broom tree, despairing and ready to give up. Yet in this moment of desperation, God meets Elijah with provision, comfort, and ultimately a renewed sense of purpose. This account offers deep insights into how the wilderness serves as a setting for spiritual growth and renewal. It also illuminates the concept of the wilderness within, where internal struggles mirror the external hardships of the wilderness. Through Elijah's experience, we learn how to strengthen faith through biblical truth and find hope in God's presence. Even in the most challenging times, this reflection also provides a practical guide for navigating modern wilderness seasons and with faith and perseverance. Elijah in the wilderness, a story of trial and renewal. Elijah's wilderness experience begins with a moment of triumph, followed by a profound despair. After defeating the prophets of Baal in a dramatic showdown on Mount Carmel, 1 Kings 18, Elijah is forced to flee for his life when King Jezebel vows to kill him. This dramatic shift from victory to fear illustrates how the wilderness often comes after intense spiritual and emotional highs, testing our faith and resilience. In 1 Kings 19, 3 and 4 Amplified, we read, "And Elijah was afraid, and arose and ran for his life. And he came to Beersheba, which belongs to Judah, and left his servant there. But he himself traveled a day's journey into the wilderness, and came and sat down under the juniper tree, or broom tree, and asked God that he might die. He said, 'It is enough now, O Lord, take my life, for I am no better than my fathers.'" This moment reveals Elijah's inner wilderness, a place of despair and fear and exhaustion. Yet it is precisely in this vulnerable state that God meets him with provision and grace. The wilderness as a place of trial and transformation. Elijah's time in the wilderness highlights several key aspects of how God uses this setting to test and transform his people. A place of exhaustion and dependence. Elijah, overwhelmed by fear and despair, collapses under the broom tree and asks God to take his life. This moment underscores the wilderness as a place where human strength fails, forcing us to rely on God. In 1 Kings 19, 5 through 6 Amplified, God responds not with rebuke, but with provision. He lay down and slept under the juniper tree, and behold, an angel touched him and said to him, "Get up and eat." He looked, and by his head there was a bread cake baked on hot coals, and a pitcher of water. So he ate and drank and lay down again. God's gentle care reminds us that he sees our needs and provides for us in times of weakness. A place of rest and restoration. Before addressing Elijah's spiritual state, God ensures his physical needs are met. Twice, God provides food and water, allowing Elijah to rest and regain his strength. 1 Kings 19, 7 through 8. This highlights the importance of rest and self-care during difficult seasons, recognizing that we cannot endure trials without tending to our physical and emotional well-being. A place of encounter and revelation. Strengthened by God's provision, Elijah journeys to Mount Horeb, where he has a profound encounter with God. In 1 Kings 19, 11 through 12, Amplified, God reveals himself not in a dramatic display, but in a gentle, quiet whisper, teaching Elijah that his presence is not always found in extraordinary, but often in the stillness. This encounter transforms Elijah, reminding him of God's sovereignty and renewing his sense of purpose. The wilderness within. Sorry to scroll down there a little bit. The wilderness within. Elijah's wilderness journey is not only physical, but only internal. His fear, despair, a sense of failure mirror the struggles many believe believers face in their own wilderness within. This internal wilderness often manifests as fear and anxiety. Elijah's fear of Jezebel drove him into the wilderness. Similarly, fear can cause us to retreat and isolate ourselves. Isaiah 41:10 Amplified offers assurance. Do not fear anything, for I am with you. Do not be afraid, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. Be assured I will help you. Feelings of inadequacy. Elijah's statement, I am no better than my fathers, 1 Kings 19:4 Amplified, reflects his struggle with self-doubt and failure. In moments of inadequacy, he can draw strength from Philippians 14:3 Amplified. I can do all things which he has called me to do, through him who strengthens and empowers me. Despair and hopelessness. Elijah's plea for death reveals the depths of his despair, yet God's gentle response demonstrates his compassion and care. Psalms 34:18 Amplified reminds us, the Lord is near to the heartbroken, and he saves those who are crushed in spirit. Strengthening faith through biblical principles. Elijah's wilderness experience offers several biblical principles for strengthening faith. God meets us in our weakness. Just as God provided food and rest for Elijah, he sustains us in our moments of weakness. 2 Corinthians 12:19 Amplified assures us, my grace is sufficient for you. My loving kindness and my mercy are more than enough, always available, regardless of the situation, for my power is being perfected and is completed and shows itself most effectively in your weakness. God's presence is constant. Elijah's encounter with God in the gentle whisper reminds us that God is always with us, even when we feel alone. Matthew 28:20 Amplified affirms, I am with you always, remaining with you perpetually, regardless of circumstances. God's presence is constant. Elijah's encounters with God in the gentle whisper reminds us that God is always with us, even when we feel alone. Matthew 28:20 Amplified affirms, I am with you always, remaining with you perpetually, regardless of circumstances. And God has a purpose for our wilderness. The wilderness is not a place of abandonment, but of preparation. Elijah's time in the wilderness renewed his purpose and equipped him to continue his prophetic ministry. Romans 8:28 Amplified assures us, and we know with great confidence that God, who is deeply concerned about us, causes all things to work together as a plan for good. Surviving the wilderness. Elijah's story provides a framework for surviving and thriving in the wilderness seasons of life. Acknowledge your need for God. Like Elijah, we most recognize our limitations and turn to God for strength. Psalms 121, 1-2 Amplified declares, I will lift up my eyes to the hills of Jerusalem. From where shall my help come? My help comes from the Lord, who made heaven and earth. Rest and replenish. God's provision of food and rest for Elijah underscores the importance of self-care. Taking time to rest and restore our bodies and our minds is essential for enduring trials. Seek God's presence. Elijah's encounter with God at Mount Horeb reminds us to seek God's intentionality. Even in the midst of difficulty, prayer, worship, and meditation on Scripture allow us to draw near to Him. Trust in God's plan. The wilderness is a season, not a destination. Trust that God is working through your trials to fulfill His purpose in your life. A modern life biblical guide to faith and hope. Elijah's wilderness experience offers timeless lessons for navigating the challenges of modern life. Here are practical steps for applying these principles. Recognize the wilderness as an opportunity. Instead of viewing trials as obstacles, see them as opportunities for growth and encounter with God. Cling to God's promises. Anchor yourself in scriptures that affirm God's presence and faithfulness. For example, Deuteronomy 31:8 Amplified. It is the Lord who goes before you. He will not fail you or abandon you. Do not fear or be dismayed. Find your strength in God's provision. Trust that God will provide for your needs, just as He provided for Elijah in the wilderness. Step into God's purpose. Allow the wilderness to refine and prepare you for the work God has called you to do. Remain faithful in the waiting. Remember that the wilderness is temporary. Preserve with faith, knowing that God is leading you to a place of renewal and restoration. So, conclusion to this chapter, Elijah's journey into the wilderness demonstrates how God uses these challenging seasons to test, transform, and strengthen his people. The wilderness, both external and internal, is a place where we encounter God's provision, experience his presence, and are prepared for his purpose. For modern believers, the lessons of Elijah's experience provide a guide for navigating the trials of life with faith and hope. By trusting in God's provision, seeking his presence, and embracing his purpose, we can not only survive the wilderness, but emerge from it stronger, more faithful, and ready to fulfill his calling. Well, that concludes chapter 3 of Faith in the Wilderness. Thank you for following me through this chapter. Please like and subscribe to my channel. Follow me on the next chapter video, and I look forward to seeing you again. Have a blessed day.